the 2021 BMW X5 M Competition package. Aloha guys, it's Joe Tunney here with my very good friends at BMW of Hawaii here in the beautiful city of Kona on the big island of Hawaii. And today we're taking a look at just simply the most extravagant sport utility I think on the market today, the 2021 BMW X5 M Competition, a 617 horsepower fire-breathing menace, one of the most thrilling vehicles of any category that you're ever going to drive in your life. And I'm going to start by taking a look under the hood and see what propels this unbelievably fast sport activity vehicle. Under the hood is BMW's S63 B44 T4 Hot V V8 engine. Now, to get a little bit more of the story of the engine itself, please take a look at the link below. I'm going to show the 2019 M5 competition that has the same B44 T4 engine and go over some of the dynamics that makes the competition package such an interesting package over the standard M. But why it's called Hot V, I'm going to focus on the turbos on this one. The turbos are actually in between the cylinder banks, and so unlike most turbocharged cars where the turbos are kind of wandering all over the place, it's very centralized, which has a lot of performance and packaging benefits. This car has 617 horsepower, but the way that it achieves that 617 horsepower is pretty amazing. Cars, engines, you know, we talk about these things going 5,000 RPM, 7,000 RPM. The turbos themselves might go 250,000 RPM. On the competition package, how it works is, if you understand turbos, if you've seen how turbos work before, the exhaust goes through the turbo almost like air going through a windmill, right? In the windmill, the turbine spins and then it makes something else produce electricity. It's the same with a turbocharger, is that the exhaust goes back through the turbo, spins the turbo, and then it in turn forces compressed air and oxygen back into the engine so that the engine gets more power. Because this spins so fast, typically exhaust gas is just freely flowing into the turbo all the time. In this case, however, the way that it works is that the turbo, even though it's spinning 250,000 up to 250,000 RPMs, the exhaust pulsates the exact perfect amount of exhaust air to turn 1/2 of one turn of the turbo. And so every time that turbo, and again, this is going up to 250,000 RPM, it's actually getting 2 specific injections of exhaust air every single time it turns around, which is why this can generate so much power, because it's so precisely engineered. One other thing is that you might have heard the term wastegate. Wastegate is can be open, partially open, or closed. That's what allows the air to not spin the turbo and to just go freely flowing out of the exhaust. When you're in sport mode in these modern BMWs, how it works is it just shuts the wastegate down, and so the wastegate's closed, so the air is always going through the turbo, so the turbo is always spinning. The result of that is there's no turbo lag of any kind, and that can be a little bit shocking. The power is so instantaneous, it's almost startling. And so for somebody buying this kind of car, well, that's exactly what they want. They don't want a car that's just fast. Lots of cars are just fast. They want something that's over the top. This car is definitely over the top, incredibly powerful. Let's take a look around and let's see what stops this big car. This is a 5,400 pound sport utility, or sport activity as BMW calls it. This has 21-inch wheels in the front and 22-inch wheels in the back. So these are 295, 35, 21, so they're 315 out in the back. This has 15.6-inch rotors with 6-piston calipers. I mean, so that's really hardcore stuff. In the back, it's single piston caliper, but it's still a 15-inch rotor. Well, the tires are so big and the brakes are so powerful that even though this weighs 5,400 pounds, this stops from 70 to 0 in 150 feet. That's like mind-blowing stuff. Even like a Porsche Panamera GTS goes 70 to 0 in 156 feet. 150 feet is unbelievable for a vehicle this size. let's pop inside. Now, of course, pretty much everything is active, from active damping to the awareness that the car has to its proximity to turns and things like that. How active damping works is a big deal actually in a car like the M Competition, because you're going to come over big potholes or things like that an aggressive car like this might be really jostled by. The cameras are reading the road in front of you, and if the camera senses that there's a pothole or some kind of anomaly in the road in front of you, what it'll do is it'll allow the suspension travel to only go up and down a small amount, so that as you go over that pothole, it knows exactly which wheel and tire is going over it, and it won't allow that wheel and tire to dip into the pothole, so it won't ram into the forward face of that pothole and make the overall performance that much better, and in fact probably save your tire in such a circumstance. The computer talks to the navigation unit talks to satellites up in the sky, and they're telling the car exactly where it is in relationship to other things going on in the road. So if there's a turn coming up in the road, this car actually knows there's a turn coming up before the turn comes up. And so it addresses that by tightening one side of the suspension and loosening the other side of the suspension in anticipation of the turns that you are about to take. And so very modern, super cutting edge stuff. Now I mentioned the brakes. The brakes 70 to 0 and 150 feet is just bananas. I mean, no sport utility vehicle is even in the same hemisphere as that. But this is a unique braking system as well. It is brake by wire, and so no brake cable as you would expect. It's been in every car since forever. And so these days you have drive-by-wire without a traditional steering rack. Brake-by-wire, similar concept, but what's cool about that feature is it allows you to change the feel of the brake pedal to a feel that works for you. If you like something that's a little bit looser, if you like something that's a little bit tighter, you can customize it to exactly the way that you want it. Because it's a competition package, one thing you're going to notice is that there's obviously gorgeous leather in this car. I mean, the interiors on these cars, all X5s, are super, super, super nice. But on the X5 M Competition, it takes it up a notch. And then there's leather just everywhere. On virtually every surface, you're going to find leather. And then, of course, the Alcantara headliner that I'm always such a big fan of. Let's take a look in back. Now, it's a 117-inch wheelbase, and so a 117-inch wheelbase is really long, so it's going to be very, very spacious inside, even for people in the back seat. So I'm 6 feet tall, 180 pounds. Even though I had the front seat pretty far back, I have acres of space here in the back seat and tons and tons and tons of headroom, even though it has a panoramic moonroof, and so that's not open right now. But panoramic moonroof is a great alternative to convertible tops. It lets the light in, and if you're driving in a downtown environment, it's really cool. If you've never driven in a downtown environment at night, the city lights through the open panorama roof is one of the coolest things that you'll ever experience. You'll wish every single car came with that feature. But it's also theater style seating, so if I'm sitting in the back, I'm actually looking up over the people in front of me, and so I have just as good a view from here as if I had in the front seat. So it makes it for a more comfortable ride for people in the back. And then it also has the shades in the back as well. Let's take a look in the trunk. I mentioned the shadow line trim as well as we come around. The shadow line trim, this extensive use of it is unique to the competition package, as is all that extra leather. Also, the exhaust is different on the competition, and then you see it has an underbody air diffuser as well. Air diffusers are important because when the air comes through the underside of the car, air tends to want to circle around back in here between the rear wheels and will cause the vehicle to elevate a little bit. And so with an underbody diffuser, it allows the air to just escape out the back and makes it for greater performance. The car will actually get lower as it goes faster, and that is definitely a good thing. Open up the trunk. So the trunk is plenty spacious. It's 33.9 cubic feet with the seats up, and over 72 cubic feet with the seats down. But even with the seats up, if you had up to a dozen bags, you know, you're going on a flight or something like that, you and your team, and you load it up with stuff that you're going to take on your flight, it'll do a little bit better than 11 bags to take on your travels. Costco, signs, real estate stuff, you know, whatever it is that you've got to load up, it has plenty of space for that. Let's take a look around. Wicked sculpting. You'll notice that throughout. Even things like the mirrors. The wing style rear view mirrors are really intense. This is a really cool car. And so this color, Toronto Red, is a really wicked color as well. This is a pretty intense looking sport utility. And we'll talk a little bit more about just how intense it is as we take it around for a drive. Let's turn it on. Yeah, it sounds super nice. I'll tell you too, turn this down a little bit. Obviously this is all-wheel drive. You can set it up so that it stays in max traction all-wheel drive, or you can set it up so that it's substantially rear-wheel drive biased, which gives it much, much, much better performance. Big heads-up display. So 617 horsepower is obviously an incredible amount of power. And this is going to go 0 to 60 miles an hour in 3.5 seconds, which is just unbelievably fast. It's unbelievably fast for an exotic sports car, but it's incredible for a sport utility. And we're going to find out just what that feels like. Yeah, wow comes immediately to mind. But again, like I said, there's no turbo lag of any kind. The turbos are already ready to go, especially if you're in sport mode. Any sport mode or above in the X5 is going to have that feature. Now, one complaint on a sport activity vehicle like this is going to be, it's a bit jarring compared to other sport utilities going over rough roads. But here we are going over rough roads, and you can barely feel it, even with these ultra high performance tires. The ride is actually incredibly soft and luxurious for what it is. For a car that can go this fast, can stop this fast, can handle this incredibly, it's actually a beautiful drive. I think, you know, a lot of people are going to say, you know, why do you need a sport utility that goes that fast? And I think to the writer Jack London from When I Was a Little Kid, he's got this famous quote about being the sailor on horseback, but it ends with, don't be a slave to an old conception. You know, just because in your parents' and grandparents' generation, you know, small, sleek cars, those were the fast ones, and the big ones were the ones that mom took kids to soccer in or what have you, and therefore it should always be that way forever. We live in modern times. You should be able to do anything that you want to do. You want an electric vehicle? Get an electric vehicle. You want a high-performance sport utility? Get a high-performance sport utility. Get whatever you want. And that's what this is all about. This is really a dreamy car for somebody who has just one vehicle that they either drive a lot or they drive all of the time. Because it's not fast like a sports car, it dominates other high-performance sports cars. It's not roomy like a sport utility, it's big like a glamorous luxury type of vehicle. This has the best of the most opulent and luxurious vehicles in the world, and it has the best of the most exotic high-performance cars in the world. It does everything magnificently. The X5 in the M edition, historically, the high-performance X5s, they're really cool, but they're still trucky. You know, the way that they handle, the way that they stop, the way that they start, it's great, it's neat. It's just not like a high-performance car. Well, those days are over. This is every bit as thrilling as the most exciting high-performance sports car in the world. It is really, really fast. It handles unbelievably well. I mean, taking turns at breakneck speeds, not a problem. But more than that, it's kind of confidence inspiring because you're not worried that, you know, you're just driving like an idiot way too fast. The car is built for anything that you want to do. In fact, you'll probably terrify yourself before you're going to discover the limits of what the X5 M Competition can do. It's the real deal. It costs real money, I get it. And so the question is there enough value for the money that you're spending in a car? Like, I just tell you right now, you can't do any better than this. This is the most exciting sport utility sold in the world, period. And so you can take the Lamborghini, you can take anything that you want and put it head to head with this vehicle. What this does is simply better than what everything else does. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me anytime. My name's Joe Tunney. You can reach me at joeloveshawaii@gmail.com or reach out to my friends right here at BMW of Hawaii.